Hi everyone, welcome back. I would like to continue with one of my favorite topics, and that is happiness. I love research on happiness. It's one of my favorite topics to learn about. And the field of positive psychology has really boomed in the past little while, and it's one of my favorites. So I'd like to share with you something else from the research that I think can sometimes shift the way we think. And that is something called impact bias. Impact bias is a term used to describe a phenomenon that humans, we often overestimate the emotional impact of a future event, both in terms of intensity and duration. So let me give an example. Let's say you thought if you won the lottery, you'd be super happy for a super long time. We overestimate how long and how happy we would be. But let's take a more realistic example. For example, we would think that if you can project into the future, that if you could travel all over the world as long as you liked, as much as you liked, that you'd be super happy for a super long time. Studies have shown that we actually don't get as happy for as long as what we think. So we're not very good at predicting how happy we would be for how long. We often overestimate. The exact same applies for negative events. We overestimate the emotional impact of a negative event, both in terms of intensity and duration. So let's take some of you who watch who are students of dentistry or students in high school, or if you can remember your school days. You would think that if you got a bad mark, you would be really upset for a really long time. Research doesn't prove it. We don't get as upset for as long. So when we take that impact bias and absorb that information, we realize that we're actually not very good at predicting how happy we will be for how long in the future. So the only moment we have is the present moment. I'd like to do a meditation to kind of really get the happiness juices flowing. And the way that I'd like to do that is a guided meditation. And we have done this together before. If you're new to this video, basically we're going to get into a seated, comfortable position. And I'm going to ask you to maybe rest your hands on your thighs, maybe take a deep breath just to ground everything. And exhale. Drop your shoulders away from your ears. Close your eyes or have a gaze downwards. And I'd like to take another breath, filling yourself like a balloon, expanding out, and exhale out. I'd like you to use a bit of imagery in this meditation. What I'd like you to bring to mind is an event in the recent past or distant of something that you were engaged in that made you super happy. It could be a trip that you recently took. It could be an activity that you were doing, an interaction you were having, a meal you were eating. Bring up to mind something that you remember was making you super happy. What I'd like you to do when you bring that into mind, I'd like you to start to think about how are you feeling in that moment? Were you warm? Were you cold? Was it chilly out? Was it warm? Was it daytime or nighttime? Who were you with? Was it a friend, a family member? Were you on your own? I want you to imagine yourself right there in that place and what things were feeling like. If nothing came to mind, that's okay. You can practice this anytime you like to conjure up those feelings of happiness. It can be very healthy for us to think about those times. Thank you so much, and I'll see you tomorrow.